been about 2 weeks, and I think the response has been, from what we see, extremely positive. I think the number of YouTube views that have been out there have been extremely high. I think you always sort of look at what the audience is saying and sort of the response from a social standpoint. But I think for us, we were really excited. And seeing the fans sort of rally around and get excited about something that you've been working on now for 12, 16, 18 months, it's sort of like it validates all the effort that you're putting into it. And the team at Treyarch, more than anybody, works super hard on these games. They're so passionate about what they're doing. So seeing sort of this upswell in terms of positivity, in terms of reaction to going, wow, we really like the fact you guys have got future. We like this sort of different approach in terms of how you guys are approaching the Strike Force levels. All of that sort of creates a lot of sort of just cool pressure to sort of get the game done and get it done right. But I think the fact that we're going to the future is not something a lot of people expected. And that was sort of one of our well-kept secrets. And I think when you look at the fiction that we had on Black Ops 1, sort of that deep, sort of rooted opportunity to sort of play with a really sort of cool story within the Cold War and the characters that were there, it sort of made logical sense for us to create that sequel and sort of continue that Cold War story, which we're doing. But as we were looking at what was going on within those areas and the sort of fertile ground that existed within Central America, what was going on in the Middle East, and the sort of key hot zones that already existed, what happens to those locations in the future? And that's really sort of what was pushing a lot of the momentum for us to sort of say, what if we told this story in sort of 2 different time zones? What if we told the sort of sequel story, but also the sequel in terms of the son of Alex Mason, David Mason, and what happens within that time frame? And all the things we were researching in terms of drones and the technology and the weaponry and all the different things that were going on in the world really was inspiring a lot of the team, especially the multiplayer guys, in terms of what they wanted to do. So that's really sort of what pushed this story to sort of take place in 2 different time frames. Call of Duty's always been this sort of entertainment value that no one really can touch. You've got this great single-player campaign, you've got multiplayer, and then depending on what the co-op opportunity is, with Spec Ops or Zombies, we've always given players a ton of opportunity to play. And Treyarch's always sort of been pushing the boundaries on that. I think from when they introduced Zombies and World at War to sort of where Zombies sort of evolved and the things that we did in multiplayer the last time around, like Wager Match and Theater, we're always sort of pushing innovation as far as we can. And I think that's one of the things when you look at what Call of Duty Black Ops 2 is going to be, it's the complete package. That's how we'd like to refer to it. You've got a great single-player campaign, I think pushing innovation more than we have in terms of storytelling, branching storyline, you reference sort of the Strike Force missions which take place within the single-player campaign, and really change the way people know a Call of Duty sort of linear game to be, to sort of throw in these sandbox missions in there.
A lot of your audience on day one is just going to jump out straight into either multiplayer and those kind of things. But how important was it to build a compelling story that would get them into playing the single-player campaign?
Sure. Single player is really important to this team. And from day one of Black Ops, we actually brought on David Goyer, who was the writer of The Dark Knight. And he and Dave Anthony, who's the director at Treyarch, have worked together to sort of say, what can we do within the narrative structure of the single-player campaign to sort of break established rules? So they had a couple of key goals set out from the forefront. One, to create the most compelling villain Call of Duty's ever seen. That's where Raul Menendez comes in. He's sort of the key villain that really sort of gets shown to the player sort of in that first Cold War. You sort of see what inspires that story, why he sort of becomes the monster, and then the full power of the monster later in the sort of future sort of storyline. And for them it was like, okay, that's one key goal. Number 2 was, how can we tell the story differently? I think Call of Duty's been criticized for being, oh, well, it's a linear game, I play it once, I'm going to go jump on multiplayer and play the rest of it there. And I think for us it was like, how can we engage players with something new and different? So 2 things that took place there. 1, the addition of the Strike Force maps, which I've talked about, and then 2, sort of this opportunity to sort of branch and change the storyline slightly depending on your actions within either those Strike Force missions or within the game campaign as well. We're also adding these different dynamics, which I think you saw in the demo. There could be an opportunity in the map where you can say, okay, you can take an Overwatch mode here, or you can go rappel down and then go close quarters combat with the enemies. In the demo you saw, the character was in Overwatch mode, taking out, defending his sort of partner, which is Harper and the President. But if you would have rappelled down, you would have gone close quarters combat, and those engagements would have been different. There's also branching paths within the maps. So later on in that mission, where you saw the individual sort of controlling the quad rotors within that mall area, there's 2 other sort of paths you can take within the map. So really sort of changing up the campaign as much as we can to give a lot of variety to the player. So balance, more than anything for the team at Treyarch on multiplayer specifically, is sort of just sacrosanct. Those are the things for them that are key and critical in terms of ensuring that the game is fair, people having a great time. And I think if you look at the multiplayer for Black Ops, still to this day, top 10 in terms of people playing multiplayer, top 5, maybe even top 2. So it's something that is really, really critical to us. And we will test and balance throughout the development of this game. So yeah, new weapons, the Sniper Storm, which can see through walls, controlling the quad rotors. we will balance that to make sure that all that stuff feels right, feels good for the game. And yes, I think for them, they looked at it going, wow, look at all these new gadgets and toys we can get to play with. Because that sort of fiction that takes place in 2025, it has to be plausible. You're not suddenly having lasers and sort of weird sort of tech that you can't really believe. It's all sort of rooted in a plausibility that could be real. And that's where we sort of do our research to say, okay, could this fictionally, or could this work within our fiction? The core goals of what we want is the same things the fans want. They want the best new Call of Duty game they've ever seen. And the team has really been focused on delivering that from a visual standpoint. From the lighting, to the types of texturing, to the types of shadowing that they're doing, and even the performance capture that they're doing in the game are all pushing the boundaries like we've never done before. And I think the visuals that you guys will see are the best visuals in any Call of Duty game that we've done to date.